began to shift.
Here to try and hold up Bryan Mbeumo. It's Xisco!
6 games, 16 points, unbeaten. Manchester United didn't just start winning, they started winning like a team that expects to win. A clean sheet against Manchester City, 3 goals away at Arsenal, 3 clean sheets in 6, 5 different types of wins.
The boys responded, the boys delivered, Michael Carrick delivered. That is what Manchester United is supposed to look like.
Control, resilience, transition, dominance, grind. And then came Goodison Park, Everton away. The kind of night United used to stumble in. Tight margins, heavy legs, no rhythm, no glamour. They didn't panic, they controlled it. And here's the part most people missed. The late collapses, gone. The defensive gaps in transition, reduced. The emotional swings, stabilised. This wasn't luck football, this was structure. And when Pep said the better team won, he wasn't just talking about one derby, he was reacting to something deeper, unpredictability with discipline. So the real question isn't whether United are winning, it's why they're winning, and why the first man to see it coming wasn't a United fan. When people talk about United being a mess before Carrick arrived, they usually mean it in a vague, vibes-based way. The atmosphere was off, the performances felt hollow, something wasn't right. But the numbers tell a sharper story. This wasn't a team that couldn't play, it was a team that couldn't finish games, couldn't control game state, and couldn't decide what it wanted to be for 90 minutes. The problem wasn't talent, it was repeatability. Look at the league run leading into mid-January. In just over a month, from December 4th to January 7th, United played 8 Premier League matches and drew 5 of them. 1-1 against West Ham, 4-4 against Bournemouth, 1-1 against Leeds, 2-2 against Burnley. 5 draws in 8 games, and not the composed we controlled that kind, the other kind, the kind where you're left saying the same thing every single week. We had moments, but we just couldn't manage it. That is a team stuck between identities, not losing consistently enough to force a crisis, not winning consistently enough to build anything, just drifting in the middle, dropping points that a club with United's expectations simply cannot afford to drop. And the 4-4 against Bournemouth deserves a moment of its own. Conceding 4 goals at home isn't a bad night, it's a warning light. It tells you that when a game turns chaotic, when the structure breaks down and things get scrappy and unpredictable, this team has no reliable way to calm it back down. So what did that actually look like on the pitch? You could feel it in the patterns. United would build momentum, go ahead, look threatening, and then the game would tilt and they just couldn't freeze it. The defensive line would sink, the midfield would stretch, the forwards would end up isolated. Possession stopped being a tool and started feeling like a liability. In football terms, that's what late game control really means. It's not just defending a lead, it's managing the temperature of the match, deciding when to speed it up, when to slow it down, when to make the game boring on purpose. United couldn't do it, not consistently, not when it counted. Which brings up the uncomfortable question underneath it all. What were they actually trying to be? Were they a pressing team or a mid-block team? Did they want to build patiently or attack quickly? When they lost the ball, did they counter-press or retreat? Who was covering the space behind the fullbacks? What was the plan when the game went ugly? You can paper over those questions when results are going your way, but the moment confidence dips, those unanswered questions become weekly problems, and for United, they had become exactly that. Then, right before Carrick's arrival, came the result that made everything feel genuinely urgent. FA Cup, January 11th, Manchester United 1-2 Brighton, eliminated. Suddenly the season had a different texture. No cup run to fall back on. League position becomes everything. Top 4 becomes oxygen. And the dressing room needs answers, not eventually, but now. On January 13th, 2026, United announced Michael Carrick as head coach until the end of the season. His first public messaging was telling. He talked about standards, about a group that was more than capable of reaching them. That might sound like standard managerial language, but read it in context, it's actually a direct response to everything that had been happening. We're not here to survive games, we're here to impose ourselves on them. Simple, clear, exactly what the room needed to hear. And then came the part that makes this whole chapter feel almost cinematic. Most new managers get a soft landing, a mid-table team at home, a week or two to install some basics and let the players adjust. Carrick got Pep Guardiola. His first game in charge, Manchester City away, one of the most tactically demanding environments in world football. But here's where it gets really interesting, even before a ball was kicked. In the build-up, Guardiola basically admitted out loud that preparing for this game had been difficult. There wasn't enough information on what Carrick's United would look like. City would have to focus on themselves and adapt as the game unfolded. Now sit with that for a second. When Pep says we don't have enough information, he doesn't mean his staff forgot to watch the tape. He means there's no stable pattern to pre-solve, no clear shape to plan against, no obvious tendencies to exploit. And for a manager who builds entire game plans around identifying and attacking those patterns, that's genuinely uncomfortable. City were built to punish predictability, and Carrick was walking in with something they couldn't account for, a completely clean slate, no footage, no habits, no tells. So that was the reset. A team drowning in draws, a team that had just conceded 4 at home and been knocked out of the cup, a team with no clear identity and not enough time to build one. And into that, a new coach, no runway, straight into the sharpest tactical exam in English football. Trial by fire doesn't quite cover it, and somehow United looked like the calmer team.
Let's be honest about something. When a new manager comes in and immediately starts winning, the first thing everyone does is reach for the same explanation. New manager bounce. Honeymoon period. Give it a few weeks. It's the safe take, and most of the time it's right. Now zoom out and look at the full picture. Carrick's first 6 league games. 5 wins, 1 draw, no losses. 16 points from a possible 18. But the number that matters isn't the points, it's the types of wins. Because if they'd all come the same way, you could still make the bounce argument. What makes this run genuinely remarkable is the variety. The Manchester Derby on January 17th didn't feel like a bounce. It felt like something clicking into place, like a system being switched on for the first time. And the best evidence for that isn't the scoreline, it's what happened inside the game and how United controlled it from start to finish. Then there's the Arsenal game, because it's probably the most revealing. United went to the Emirates and won 3-2 in a match where, by almost every surface metric, Arsenal were better. More possession, more shots, higher XG. On paper, it was Arsenal's game to win, and yet United stayed in it, absorbed the pressure without buckling, waited for their moments, and when those moments came, they took them. That's not lucky. That's a team that knows how to win ugly, which is one of the hardest skills in football to actually teach. Then came Fulham at home, and this one was just chaotic, end to end, both teams creating, Fulham's XG actually slightly edging United's by the end of it, the kind of game that has no business being decided by anything other than a coin flip. Šeško came off the bench and won it late, and here's the thing, the old United, the pre-Carrick United, dropped points in exactly this type of game. The game gets scrappy, the structure breaks down, and suddenly it's 2-2 and you're watching the clock. This time, they found a way. Tottenham was the palate cleanser, back to control, back to structure. 65% possession, 23 shots. United's XG nearly 4 times higher than Spurs. Tottenham barely threatened. It was the kind of performance where the result never really felt in doubt, which sounds unremarkable until you remember that a month earlier, United couldn't protect a lead against Burnley. West Ham away ended in a draw, and it's worth spending a moment on this one because it actually tells you something important. West Ham created more than United did that day. It wasn't a good performance, but United took a point from a game they weren't at their best in, didn't panic, didn't concede the late goal that would have sent everyone spiralling. The old script writes itself, below par display, sloppy defending, lose 2-0, back to square one. The new script, take the point, get on the bus, next game. And then Everton away, 1-0, 11 shots, 3 points. It doesn't sound like much, but this is the fixture that separates real progress from a run of form. Everton away on a cold Tuesday night. Nothing romantic about it. No narrative push to carry you through. Just 90 minutes where you have to be organised and disciplined and professional, or you don't get anything. United were all three. Across those 6 games, 12 goals scored, 5 conceded, 3 clean sheets. And look at the range of ways they got those results. Suffocating City through structure, surviving Arsenal through resilience, outscoring Fulham through quality off the bench, grinding out Everton through pure professionalism. That is not one mood. That is not one style of performance carried on a wave of goodwill. That is a team learning to win in multiple ways. The new manager bounce argument has a very simple flaw. Bounces are fragile, one-dimensional things. They rely on emotion and novelty, and the opposition not quite having you figured out yet. They don't survive chaos at Fulham and a grinding Tuesday night at Goodison in the same week. This was something different.
Here's where we have to stop letting the feeling carry us and actually hold it up to the light. So before anyone gets carried away, the right thing to do is place this run next to actual context. Not emotion, not narrative, not vibes. Numbers. Proper ones. Carrick's first 6 league games. 16 points from 18, 2.67 points per game, 83% win rate, 12 goals scored, 5 conceded, 3 clean sheets, a goal difference of +7. Projected over a full 38-game season, that pace gives you 101 points. Now, nobody is seriously claiming United are going to finish the season with 100 points. That's not the point. The point is that 2.67 points per game isn't mid-table team gets a bit of confidence form. Anything above 2.3 points per game, sustained over a meaningful window, is the territory Arsenal and City operate in across entire campaigns. That's the benchmark, and United have been sitting inside it. That's not enthusiasm talking, that's just math. But points are the surface. To really understand what's changed, you have to go deeper, and the most revealing place to look is the defensive numbers, because that's where the shift is most obvious and most significant. Before Carrick arrived, United's problem wasn't scoring. They could score. The problem was volatility, conceding 4 against Bournemouth, giving up leads, being unable to control the temperature of a game when it turned against them. The defensive structure wasn't reliable, and unreliable defending at this level costs you every single time. Then, look at what happened in the 6 games under Carrick. 5 goals conceded across the whole run, 3 clean sheets, and in the biggest matches against City, against Spurs, against Everton, opponents were held to XG figures of 0.45, 0.49 and 0.62 respectively. 3 games where the opposition barely created anything worth talking about. For context, when City win titles, they typically concede around 0.8 to 0.9 expected goals per game across a full season. When Arsenal push for the title, they're in that same defensive band. In this 6-game window, United were operating at that level or better. And here's why that matters more than the goals scored column. Goals fluctuate. A striker has a hot week, the chances fall kindly, the numbers look great. But defensive structure, the ability to consistently restrict opponents to poor shots from bad positions, that's repeatable. That's something you build, and it doesn't show up accidentally. There's another layer underneath the defensive numbers that elite coaches pay close attention to, and it doesn't get nearly enough attention in regular conversation. Shot quality and shot suppression. Against City, Guardiola's side had 68% of the ball and produced a total XG of 0.45, 1 shot on target. Against Spurs, 7 shots total, 1 on target, 0.49 XG. Those aren't just good defensive performances, they're statements about where opponents were allowed to operate. United weren't just stopping shots, they were controlling the spaces that lead to shots in the first place. The subtle but crucial thing here is that United weren't dominating possession across this run. They weren't the team with 65% of the ball in every game, stroking it around, suffocating teams through control. Against City, they had 32% possession. At Arsenal, they had less than half. What they were doing instead was dominating zones, staying compact, forcing teams into areas where they couldn't hurt you, and then hitting with precision on the break. That distinction between chasing possession and managing risk is the difference between a team that's rebuilding and a team that's actually competing. Rebuilders need the ball to feel in control. Contenders understand that control isn't about having the ball, it's about deciding what happens when you don't. And then there's the win profile, which might be the most compelling part of all of this. Think about the variety of problems United solved across those 6 games. They beat City by controlling space without the ball. They beat Arsenal away by absorbing pressure and executing under it. They outscored Fulham in a chaotic, open match that could have gone either way. They dominated Tottenham territorially. They ground out Everton professionally. 5 completely different games, 5 completely different tactical demands, and United navigated every single one. That breadth is important, because a false dawn, a bounce, a run built on nothing, it's almost always one-dimensional. It's a team playing one way, riding one wave of confidence, and it works until someone works out how to break it. What United showed across this run is that there isn't just one version of them to break. They can sit deep and suffocate you, they can absorb and counter, they can dominate territory, they can win ugly late. That's not a bounce, that's a toolkit. And then there's the one result that didn't go their way, the draw at West Ham, which is actually just as instructive as the wins. United's attacking numbers that day were poor. Their XG was 0.57. They weren't sharp, they weren't fluent, they weren't at anything close to their best, and they still came away with a point, didn't concede a late goal, didn't collapse, didn't lose. Title-challenging teams don't win every single week. Nobody does. What separates them is the ability to avoid losing when they're off it. That afternoon at West Ham, United did exactly that. So how does all of this sit against Arsenal, City, Villa, Chelsea, Liverpool, the clubs that set the standard in this league? The honest answer is that the metrics United have produced in this window, points per game, defensive suppression, clean sheet ratio, shot control in big matches, the ability to win different types of games, all of it aligns with the numbers you typically associate with the top cluster of this league. Not one or two of those metrics, all of them in the same 6-game stretch. That doesn't make United title favourites, it doesn't erase the chaos that came before Carrick, or guarantee anything about what comes next, but it does move them clearly and measurably from unstable giant occasionally threatening to do something to serious operator you have to genuinely plan for. And perhaps nobody understood that shift faster than Guardiola. Pep doesn't fear reputation, he doesn't fear history or tradition or the size of a badge. He fears specific things: structural clarity, adaptability, emotional control, and momentum. A team that defends zones consistently and concedes low XG. A team that wins different types of games. A team that doesn't panic when it's being pressed and doesn't collapse when it goes behind. A team whose standards are rising rather than fluctuating. This isn't a team surviving moments anymore, it's a team shaping them. If this is what Manchester United looked like at the beginning of Carrick's era, then the ceiling hasn't even been touched yet.